I don't think it lets people in until it's time.
Welcome. Hi, I'm Dr. Shannon South, and welcome to 3 Steps to Raising Your Joy IQ. I am so happy to be here with you tonight, and I'm thrilled to share with you my 3-step process that has been transformational for the last 20 years in working with clients, dealing with stress, anxiety, depression, panic, lots of different issues for folks, and I'm so happy to be able to share that with you tonight. You're also going to be seeing some different brain myths and ways to rewire your brain so that you can have more joy in your life. And then I'm going to be doing some experiential exercises where we actually get to practice some joy-building techniques that help you to go beyond even your 5 senses and tap into that joy that is beyond your story. I am a transpersonal psychologist, and what that means is transpersonal means beyond the mind. And I help folks just like you get beyond their story and into more joy. So what does that mean? We're going to see as we move along in the webinar. And also towards the end of it, we're going to have a live Q&A where you can actually ask me questions about the things that are getting in the way of your joy or any of the questions that we cover in the webinar, and you can interact with me in this. So I won't be able to actually see you, but I can see your quotes on the side and comments and things like that. So feel free to type on the side, and I may not see all of them, but I will see as many as I can. And when we have the Q&A, I'll be looking for your questions so that we can do some Q&A towards the end of the session. So again, I'm thrilled that you're here today. So let me tell you just a little bit about why I am so passionate and pumped about joy. Years ago, I went through a really deep, dark time where I had depression, anxiety. I went to a psychiatrist in college, and I was trying to graduate from college. I really wanted to become a counselor. And I went into the psychiatrist. He gave me all these tests, these like ink block tests and all these different crazy tests. And I said, what's wrong with me? You know, I don't sleep well. I'm afraid a lot. I'm having a lot of sad thinking. I'm having really negative thoughts. Help me. And he said, well, you've got, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder, you've got depression, you've got panic disorder, all these different kind of diagnoses. And I said, oh my goodness, that sounds really bad. So he gave me some medication and sent me home, and it actually helped. I would have taken anything. I would have gargled peanut butter on my head to feel better during that time in my life. And I felt so much better. And I went into therapy and got all kind of things. Support from other people, and I felt better for a while. But what I wanted was a natural approach for lasting, permanent joy that would work. So years later, when I was in grad school becoming a therapist, I actually decided I wanted to get off this medication and see what was working. So I'd gone to this woman, and she taught me meditation. And I was feeling a lot better, and I thought, is it the medication or is it the meditation? I don't know. So I decided to sit down, and I decided to wean myself off the medicine. And please see a doctor before you do anything like that tonight, though, folks. And also sat down, and I was meditating in my apartment. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden this panic feeling started coming over me. And I'd been off the medication for about 24 hours. And I said, oh my goodness, if there's anything or anyone out there, please help me. I don't want to feel this stress like this anymore. And all of a sudden, a wave of love and joy just washed over me, like I could say a tsunami of love and joy without the water. And it just completely washed away the whole stress pattern that had been there regarding the panic and the stress and the depression. And I did not have a panic attack again after that day forward. So then I went on to study transpersonal psychology, and what I found out was that that was a peak experience. And many of you may have had those peak experiences. And if you hadn't, these 3 steps will give you more access to those kind of experiences tonight that I'm going to be teaching you. So thank you for listening to a little bit about why I'm so pumped about this. And I want to dive into a presentation that I put together just for you tonight so you can learn more about these 3 steps. So welcome, everyone. I see all these wonderful people popping in on the side. I see some old friends of mine. Oh, there's Dan, there's Susie, there's Sindora. Oh, all these wonderful people. Thank you for being here. So let me go ahead and do this PowerPoint, and we'll get started. Okay, so 3 steps to raising your joy IQ. I really want to help you rewire your brain so joy is your default setting. And so when we think about joy, joy comes a lot from meaning, and it comes from pleasure. So if you have meaning in your life, something that means something to you, that gives you meaning and feels like you are on purpose in the world, that brings a lot of joy. Also, as I was doing my research, I also found that pleasure brings us a lot of joy. So when we're moving into pleasurable activities that are not all the guilty pleasures, but some of those are fun as well, but the real healthy, clean pleasures, they bring us a lot of joy. So let me show you my daughter. This is my 9-year-old daughter, and she's in 3rd grade, and we kind of get a little wild with the easy cheese around our house sometimes. So I went into the 3rd grade class the other day, and I'll tell you a few just little silly 3rd grade jokes that I heard that bring a lot of joy. And what I noticed about 3rd graders is they are so funny. They will find things just to laugh about, even if they're not that funny, just to laugh. So they have a lot of connection with joy, a lot of exuberance around joy. And so one of the jokes that one of the 3rd graders told me was this: what do you call a camel with no humps? Hump free. And the other joke I heard the other day, boom, right, was what is orange and kind of a food, but you can't have it? It's nacho cheese. So I hope you enjoy those silly, goofy jokes, and we'll get started on rolling down this joy train. So here is my family, and my husband is a psychologist, and we have lots of wonderful joy talks. But one of the things that really brings joy in our relationship is authenticity. We are really honest with each other, and we like to share what's going on from deep in our heart. And it all just creates a natural environment for joy to shine in our home. So that's one thing that really keeps us connected, and that's my daughter again. And these are my two beautiful step boys. They are all three gems in our life, and they are true joy builders for all of us. And so I had another joyful moment this year, and we all have these kind of short-lived joys, but what I'm sharing this with you, the reason I'm sharing it is because I want your dreams to come true as well. So the more joy we have, the more we are connected to our soul. And joy is kind of like a pipeline to our soul. So what brings you natural joy, it will bring you more success and joy in your life. So I had a joyful moment this year when I got to be in a wonderful book with New York Times bestselling authors Marcy Shimoff, Janet and Chris Atwood, Jeff Affleck, lots of different people in this book, and it was a wonderful, fun opportunity to be in the hot new releases and happiness for Amazon. Another joyful moment was when I released my ebook, Time for Me, From Stressed Out Mom to Joy Magnet in 3 Simple Steps. And this actually has a brief run of the 3 steps we're going to do tonight. And it really focuses on mothers and how well that mothers can work through these steps and how it will help them in their lives. And so, how can your dreams come true? We're going to get into that more, because when we're in survival mode and we're feeling anxious or depressed or stressed, we don't even have time to dream. So do you give yourself time to dream? Because as we're dreaming more, the more we dream, the more we are able to access our joy and find out what dreams really bring us joy. So as we do that, we will find that we will be led down the path to more joy. So, when we're depressed or stressed, it can feel like the peak of joy is so far away. But just remember, you are not alone. You know, when we're feeling stressed, we feel disconnected, we feel stuck on ourselves. There's actually a part of the brain that lights up, and we feel really self-focused, and we really want to step back and cultivate beingness. So I do want to talk to you more about that as well. But as we can cultivate beingness, you see this guy hanging on the cliff. He's definitely not thinking about the future, the past, probably very much. He is in his present moment, cultivating one step at a time, and that helps bring more joy. So here's my brother, and we have all these dreams. We love to dream together about hiking all over the world, and this is gorgeous Asheville, North Carolina, where I live, the Blue Ridge Mountains behind us. And when we're out in nature, and you all may experience this as well, it creates more joy because we savor the simple. It's so fun to be savoring the simple, and that actually creates new neural networks in the brain when we can savor the yummy good things in our lives and the simple wonderful joys of nature. And nature is a really good teacher to do that. So are you slowing down enough to do this in your life? That would be a question I would ask you. And also, are you giving attention to savoring the simple in your life? Because that is a magic pill to make joy networks in your life shine. So moving into nature is a good one. So let me tell you what Oprah says about joy. Oprah says joy is a sustained sense of well-being, an internal peace, a connection to what matters. And Oprah and Brene Brown had this wonderful video out about joy, and they talk a lot about we have to feel safe to feel joyful. It's like joy, we tend to want to replace joy with a stress pattern, and our brain wants to take over the stress pattern, and we get afraid to feel joyful because we're afraid we're going to lose something, or we're afraid if we embrace it too much it's going to leave, or we're not going to be enough, or something bad's going to happen. And so if we can sustain this sense of well-being and peace and connect to what matters, we can experience more joy. So Gandhi said, one of my favorites, happiness is when what you think, say, or do is in harmony. Because when we're stressed out in our joy-busting stage, what happens is we don't feel it congruent. We feel split apart. And so we want to integrate all these different parts of us to be focused on joy and focus forward on the intention of building joy in our lives, and that will help as well. So Deepak Chopra has a beautiful quote. He said, joy is a return to the deep harmony of body, mind, and spirit that was yours at birth and that can be yours again. The openness to love, the capacity for wholeness with the world around you, it is still within you. And so I know I sent out that 4 laughing babies video, and if you had a chance to see that, you would see how much of a capacity for joy we come in with. And then what happens is it gets covered up, for well-meaning parents, conditioning, traumas, experiences. And as we uncover that joy and the natural tendency for that, we can really recapitulate and find that wholeness inside of ourselves, and that helps with the joy. So this is my beautiful nephew, Carson, and he's just a gorgeous little baby, and he's so joyful. Look at that face. It just resonates with joy, like he is connected to his joy from his head to his toe. And that is how I want you to feel, and I'd love to teach you this 3-step process to help you do just that. So we have some sobering stats. Unfortunately, 40 million adults have anxiety disorders. We spend $42 billion a year on adults with these kind of disorders. And if you've ever had a panic attack, you know for sure that these repetitive hospital visits is a very physical issue when we have stress and when we have anxiety. And also depression is the leading cause of disability in the U.S. for ages 15 to 44. That's a pretty large statistic. So we need more approaches that truly work for more joy. So that's another motivator for doing this webinar tonight. So let me talk about the brain a little, because it's so important, because if we can help work with our physiology, kind of an inside-out job, we can actually create more capacity for joy, which is so exciting. If you look at meditation, for example, the nuns and the monks that have a higher sense of well-being meditate often, and the part of their brain that registers joy is much larger. I found this great article in Psychology Today, and it said why you should meditate every day. And for those of you who heard my story at the beginning, you know that meditation has been one of my big joy builders. It helps, I think it rewired my brain. And so the brain of meditators look different in several ways, and let me tell you how. One, the wise, happier parts of the brain that can see the bigger picture. Like you don't get caught up in the minutia of details that don't really matter. You can see the bigger picture, and the brain doesn't take things so personally after meditation becomes a habit and a joy-building habit in your life. Also, the other parts that ruminate are less strong in the brain of meditators, and those that obsess and take things personally reduce in strength. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? And also empathy is increased for yourself as well as others. So it kind of helps move you out of that stage of your brain where it's all about me, that part that really gets obsessive and worries about you. And the alarms go off in your brain. There's danger, 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 when there's really not danger happening in front of you. Now that's different, of course, if you're in an abusive relationship or something like that that could create danger. But what we know is if we get in a healthy, safe environment and our brain is continuing to send off danger signals, we have to do what we need to do to feel safe in order to create more capacity for joy. So, there are some myths about the brain, and I got this out of this wonderful book called Super Brain, and Deepak Chopra and a professor of neurology at Harvard actually wrote this book. And one of the myths they talked about is the injured brain cannot heal itself. We know that it can. And the reason we know that, I don't know if you've heard the story about Milton Erickson. He was a famous physician years ago, and he got almost paralyzed completely except for his eyelids. He had polio, and his parents set him in a rocking chair with a hole cut in the middle of the chair to go to the bathroom. He could not move, and he would sit beside the window and stare out the window day after day after day and watch his siblings play, watch his neighborhood friends play, and he could not move out of the chair. So what he started doing was he desired to play so much outside, and he started training his higher brain to actually heal himself through mind-body training. And he practiced seeing himself active. He's running, he's moving. And this is more than positive thinking, folks. This is really deep desire for more joy and healing in one's life. And as he did this, he started realizing the rocking chair would move. And the more he did this, the more the rocking chair would move. And he eventually healed to the capacity where he could actually walk again and use all his body. And that was an incredible example of how the injured brain, mind, body can heal itself. The other myth is the brain's hardwiring cannot be changed. And as we know, our brain is a muscle. So let's think about this. If we work our muscle out by working on those joy pathways, we can change our brain. It's like giving it it is a muscle, and it does respond to the choices that we make each day. So if we fire together joyful, positive neurons, they wire together. The neurons that fire together wire together. So focusing on joy and creating these new neural pathways does matter. I'll give you a funny example. As I was starting to write my book on joy, and I started doing this webinar and getting really focused on joy as something that I really wanted to share in the world, I started having all these synchronicities, all these things. People, the editor for the book, she had a tattoo of joy on her arm. I went to a meeting, an Al-Anon meeting. I hadn't been to one in years, and the participants, they were passing around these things, and we each had one topic, and of course I got the topic of joy. And then I get in my car later, I'm driving down the street, I look over, and there is a license plate that says, "Don't postpone joy." And so all these things start happening when we start focusing on new neural pathways for joy. So don't give up if you're in a place where you really want more joy and you're not experiencing it like you want it. We'll skip number 3 because we're not really talking about aging, but aging does not have to happen in the brain, and he goes into that. And myth number 4, the brain loses millions of cells a day. So those college years, don't worry. It's a myth. We didn't lose all our brain cells. The lost brain cells cannot be replaced, and that's just not true. What they found was that it would take 600 years to lose half the neurons in your brain. So I don't think we're going to be around quite that long. And there's one more myth that's not up here, but I'd love to share it with you, is that primitive reactions like anger and jealousy and aggression and fear, that those overrule the higher brain. And that's just not true. We want to say nix on that, because what we find, we can train our higher brain to run the show. And what does that mean, train our higher brain? What that means, we can train those parts of ourselves that have more compassion, forgiveness, understanding, gratitude, love, and joy to actually run the show for us. So this is a wonderful slide about the joy center of the brain, and the CEO of the brain, see there in the front there, is actually disengaged when we're under stress. So it actually leaves the building. We can't even access that healthy CEO of our brain when we're under severe stress. So things like sleep deprivation, substance abuse, all these kind of things that we get in negative patterns around, they can lead to impulsive behavior, stress-related diseases, all these kind of diagnoses, and too many alarms going off in the brain. So what we want to do is to train our brain so that center of well-being and joy that we saw earlier can run the show. So if we have too much cortisol, which comes from stress, and we have chronic cortisol, this fight and flight response in our nervous system and in our brain, we get really out of balance. And so we really want to train those parts of ourselves to go towards joy. So I'm going to show you this 3-step process that will help you do that. Okay, so which part do I listen to? Which part do we listen to? We have all these different parts, and they're running inside. Sometimes it feels like a bunch of wild horses. I always tell my clients, we have this brain we have to train, and it's a bunch of wild horses running different ways. And we want to integrate them and going in the similar direction. And so meditation and these other joy patterns I'm going to teach you tonight can do just that. So isn't this a beautiful picture? I love this sunflower. It has actually reached its full potential. It clearly has the right environment, the ideal environment, the sun, the water, the space to stretch out and bloom into its most beautiful essence. And I would love for you all to reach your fullest potential as well, because we have so much potential to access within us. So I would love for these 3 steps to help you move into your most juicy, glorious selves, just like this beautiful sunflower. So let's talk about that. So step 1, here we are. Step 1 is stomping out your joy busters. So what are joy busters? And if you want to type some in on the side, you're welcome. We're going to get into that a little in more detail here in a few minutes. But self-doubt is one, definitely. I am not enough. I'm not enough. And so I need to add more things to my life, or push myself through, or not listen to myself, or make myself something that's not authentic to me. That is what happens when we don't feel enough. And as you can see in this diagram, in stomping out your joy busters, the mind, the body, and the spirit are a long way away from each other. They don't feel real connected. See the space between them? And joy is not easy to access. It's kind of far away as well. But they're all there. They're just all not kind of in sync, in harmony, so we can produce more joy. So we may use fillers or numbers to glue together the pain to help us. And that may help us get more balance temporarily. So if you don't hear anything tonight out of what I'm saying to you, this is one of the most important messages I'd like to share. And it's our relationship to what is going on with us, not what is, that is the problem and the solution. So how are we relating to the things that are going on in our lives? Clearly, we will have times when we feel down and depressed and sad, but this three-step process can move us through that much faster and help us move through this so we can relate to what's happening in our lives in a much smoother, easier way to access joy and love even faster. That's that net of joy and love that I want to help you create. So you can see this one guy, he clearly is like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to me? And the other boat, they're clearly relating to their situation with much more ease and joy. So we could relate to it in a negative way. We could say, oh, I like this guy. I'd read it, but it probably wouldn't do me any good anyway. So, breaking the cycle of negative thinking. And clearly how we think is very important. We can actually put ourselves into the fight and flight response if we are thinking negatively. We can scare ourselves into an alarm system going off in our brain. And so negative thinking does affect our system in a great way. So the opposite is also true. And so this is my daughter savoring the short-lived joys of life, like licking the bowl of chocolate after the yummy brownie mix that we've made. And so those are wonderful things that we want to absolutely do, but we also want to get beyond our five senses to have more joy. And of course, I don't know if you all saw the movie where Jim Morrison in The Doors and Val Kilmer played him in there, and he clearly, his five senses definitely ran the show, didn't they? He had power, money, fame, drugs, alcohol, everything you could imagine, and he didn't live quite so long. Poor guy, but he definitely was overtaken by his five sensory body. So we want to get beyond our five senses and move into longer lasting joy. So is more better, or is it? Clearly this person thinks it is. I think this must be from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory when that kid jumped in the chocolate dish. Okay, so let's get beyond the five senses. And what we find, good old Freud years ago said this. He said that we have so much going on underneath our conscious knowledge. And so we have an unconscious level. So let's dig a little deeper, because Albert Einstein said that the subconscious mind is so much wiser than the conscious mind. So if we know what's going on in our subconscious mind, our fears, our selfish needs, our wishes, all these things that are more uncomfortable, we will be able to bring them to more consciousness, and we will be able to have more joy. The other thing we focus on in transpersonal psychology is something called the superconscious, and that is the wise self that helps us as well to navigate towards joy. So let me tell you this great story. This is a monk, and he told some wonderful stories. And as I studied transpersonal psychology, I went and got my doctorate in that, and learned a lot about lots of different spiritual paths. But what this monk said is the story of two eras, and let me tell it to you because it's so deeply important in terms of having joy in our lives. So what he said was that we have the initial era, the initial pain that happens in our life, the grief, the loss, the depression, the sadness, the trauma, the mistake that seems like a mistake, something that happens that creates pain, the initial era. And then what happens is we create more suffering out of that. We create more arrows. We doubt ourselves. We feel like we're not enough. We say things like, something must be wrong with me that this has happened. I need to change myself, or I'm afraid this will happen again. And we go into lots of joy-busting patterns and create more and more and more arrows, and it just creates more and more and more suffering. So unfortunately, that's one thing that we tend to do as human beings. And if we can grab it at the first arrow and allow ourselves just to have the first arrow and really work this three-step process so we don't have to shoot ourselves with more arrows, we can hold ourselves with compassion and love and self-love and have more joy. So I want to challenge all of you on the call tonight to really think about, how are you relating to yourself right now even? Are you being critical? Are you being hard on yourself? Are you holding yourself in a net of joy and love with less judgment? Because it's so important so we do not create more arrows in the second arrow. Okay, so obsessing. Of course, obsessing is a joy buster, and we cannot experience joy through the mind. It can only be found through the heart. And so as we calm those wild horses of the mind and they take a back seat, we feel more joy. So for example, I read an article the other day that said brooding and thinking something over and over and over and over causes depression. So let's train the brain out of those ruminating spaces. So this is a cat. It's a silly picture, but this is a cat chasing its tail. And when we're under stress, sometimes we feel like this cat chasing its tail. So Einstein said we cannot solve our problem with the same thinking we use to create them. So therefore, we have to step back and into another part of ourself, which I'll call our wise self, our most loving, joyful self, to help us with the problem. So the good news about that is if we step back into that more loving, wise self, we can actually access more joy, more love, more calm, and more peace, and we can move into the problem and find a solution with that kind of space, giving ourselves that self-loving space. So when we do that, we feel like a cat out of the bag. We are free. Yay! We get so excited, and this freedom feels so good. And the obsessing begins to settle down, and we actually feel so much freedom, which runs alongside of joy. Freedom is totally joy's twin sister or brother. So let's move into something that I would love for each of you to do, and let's think about what is the biggest joy buster in your life right now. And so what is the thing that disconnects you from joy? So think about that, and I would love for you to type this in on the side, just putting in your biggest joy buster. And I know with this technology there's a short delay. As you put something in, it takes me just a little bit, few seconds to see it. So I'll be looking at the Q&A, and then you can put in your joy busters, and we'll talk about a few of these. So as people are logging in and as people are putting in their joy busters, what I'd love to talk about is the next step. And so how do we get rid of these joy busters? Well, self-discipline, of course. Not quite. That actually is wonderful. And of course, Nike made a mint off of that, didn't they? Just do it. And that's really great. We do need that masculine energy, for lack of a better word, to help us to create patterns that do develop joy habits in our life. But it doesn't always work that way, and we have to cultivate this beingness to go to the deeper parts of ourselves. So self-discipline doesn't work sometimes, but when we have parts of ourselves in disagreement, when we have a lot of emotional charge around an issue, and we have to learn how to eliminate that charge. And also, if we've not uncovered the layers of our deepest heart, our subconscious, and made those parts conscious. Because we often say we should be this, or we should do that, or I should be this way, or I should be acting that way, and we're hard on ourselves and we lose the heart of the matter. And so we want to really hold ourselves in that net of love and support. So as I'm looking to the side, it looks like people are putting in their joy busters, and please feel free to type in on the side what busts your joy in your life. So what I tell my clients is I'll say to them, please don't feed the ego, because this is a silly slide, but the lower brain, the more reptilian brain we'll call it, I always say you can give that part a crumb now and again. You know, maybe once in a while you want to cuss or you want to do something stupid or silly, but you don't want those weeds to take over your garden. You don't want those parts of yourself that you know are not healthy for you to take over your garden and actually ruin that beautiful sunflower, which is the essence of who you are. So if you give those little nibbles here and there and do things that maybe aren't completely in sync with what's healthy for you, it's okay. But allowing yourself to truly do that and move into your joy if we don't want to feed the ego too much. So I do see that some people putting in the joy buster is overwhelm. And so sometimes we get into overwhelm. And when we get into that flooded place, that's kind of that wonderful Einstein example when we want to step back and calm our physiology. And I'm going to show you a breathing exercise just here in just maybe about 5 minutes, that will help you calm your physiology and help with that overwhelm. And also I'm seeing people put up their depression, these chronic patterns of depression. And often what happens with those is we actually get in these joy-busting patterns, or we're not getting our real needs met on a really deep level. And so what we want to do is this 3-step process helps us to identify our real need so that we can actually get that met, and that creates more capacity for joy. So thank you all so much for sharing. So step 2, let's go into step 2, strengthening your joy builders. And so if you look at this diagram, you see this teeny little ant holding up this thing that's much larger than him. And sometimes when we're depressed or we're stressed or we're anxious, it feels like a daunting task, like we're never going to be able to do this. But one thing that I know is if we feel like I can handle this and I can move through this, it creates less anxiety. And this ant clearly has an I can attitude. And if you look at this diagram, the mind, the body, and the spirit, when your joy builders, like the things that are creating more joy for you, are actually running the show more, your mind, body, and spirit are more congruent. Can you see those? They're closer, and you have more access to joy. So be honest with yourself, because one thing we do is we trick ourselves. We say, oh my gosh, that brings me joy, and it truly doesn't. So we want to get honest with what really creates joy for us to open that pipeline up to our soul. Gratitude is another huge one, and I've never met a person that did not have a lot of gratitude in their life who was not a joyful person. Gratitude for the simple things also is a huge joy builder for us in our lives. So other ways we can build joy in our lives and move through step 2 are getting to the layers of our deepest heart. And we have to honor our emotions, because sometimes we get into these chronic patterns and we are leaving our emotions out. We don't allow space to actually get the support we need for our emotions, because emotions are the bridge to our soul. And I love this diagram. We have this bridge going down and you can't really see where you're going because emotions are kind of a hairy thing like that. It takes a lot of courage to move into this world of emotions. And as we move through those with support and guidance, what we find is we come out the other end. Do you see how that actually works? And with the more we are able to do that on our own, the more we can do that with ourselves and run ourselves through this 3-step process. So as we come out, we have a clearer vision, we have a better vision, and we've moved into the layers of our deepest heart for more joy. So another way we build joy is developing a relationship with our body. So I'm not going to ask you to do this move right now, but I do know that we have some yoga teachers on the call that might be able to do that actually. But we don't. We want to listen to our body, because our body tells us so much about what's going on. Sometimes chronic arousal with cortisol can also create depression, because we were so stressed for so long that we actually slump into a depression. So let's work on calming our physiology. I want to teach you a quick joy-building breath exercise. I call this the joy breath. And so just sit where you are and, putting your feet on the floor and closing your eyes if that feels good to you. And we're going to breathe in through our nose for 4. We're going to hold for 7 and breathe out for 8. So I'm going to guide you through this, so no worries. So allowing yourself to begin by breathing in slowly for 4 counts. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and exhale for 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's breathe in for 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and exhale. And last time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and exhale. So just sensing the calm that creates. Okay, so using that exercise even 3 times a day, even when you're not stressed, can help calm your physiology and energize you to create those new neural networks in the brain for joy. So another great joy builder is developing a relationship with your emotions and your beliefs about the world. So we want to say this out loud. We're going to do something silly. Just say this out loud, to wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I am a joy magnet. Just saying that out loud. See how that feels. I'm a joy magnet. And then say out loud to yourself, I am a crap magnet. I am a crap magnet. And just noticing how that feels. Clearly that feels different. So you can imagine if you're running that underground program of joy is not for me, or I'm always doubting myself or confusing things, or I'm always feeling like I'm not good enough, or I don't know what the right direction is for me, that can truly get in your way for joy. So we're going to move into developing a relationship with your subconscious mind, because this helps us get beyond our five senses and into more joy. So subconscious mind speaks to us in so many different ways, through dreams, through synchronicities, through symbols, through creative flashes. Sometimes we get signs in meditation. And these are great ways to access that wiser part of ourselves that can help us have more joy in our lives. So, for example, let's go ahead and close our eyes, and we're going to do a short, simple exercise. So allowing yourself to close your eyes and moving into a quiet space inside. And just that joy buster that you actually mentioned earlier, whether it's second guessing yourself, I see that one, or depression or overwhelm, or any of these joy busters that you experience, allow yourself to close your eyes and just to feel that joy buster in your body. How does that feel in your body? And then I want you to sense this. Do you have anger or pain or sadness? And really sense where that is in your body. And I want you to imagine you have like this imaginary vacuum cleaner. You can just pull that right out of your body. Imagine you could pull that joy buster out and let it take a shape or a color. What does that look like? What does that joy buster look or feel like? Is it sharp? Does it feel painful? Does it feel good to have that out? Does it feel stubborn, like it doesn't want to leave? Does it feel like it's been there so long that you have no idea how it would go? Just sensing that. And I want you to thank this part of you, this joy buster, for trying to help you. It has been there to try to help you maybe for years and years and years. And you want to thank it for trying to help you, but it's not getting you where you want, and that is to raise your joy IQ. You want more joy. So I'd like for you to ask your wise self, and all of us have one, and even if you think you don't, just close your eyes and ask that wise part of you to bring you a symbol that represents joy for you right now. What would that be? Bring you a symbol that represents joy. And when you sense that, ask that joyful symbol, and if you don't get one, it's okay. Just envision what you might like to see. Ask that symbol if it's willing to represent joy for you. And ask it if it would help you with the other image, to help reduce that part of you that's getting in the way of your joy. And also you can ask it, what advice does it have for you? Does it have some advice for you right now? Maybe it has some really great advice, an action step that you could take to actually bring more joy in your life, to help work with your joy buster. And so the more we access our subconscious mind, the more comfortable we get in that territory, and the more joy that we can experience. So doing this exercise over and over can also help with creating more joy. So thank you all for being willing to do that for me. I love this joy builder, and this is definitely a cat snugging up to this dog, and he says, I like big mutts and I cannot lie. I don't know if y'all remember that 80s song, but that was a silly 80s song years ago. But it's wonderful to have physical nurturing contact that helps really create that yummy joy, yummy dopamine in our brain, where we feel a lot of pleasure and joy when we have yummy nurturing contact with others. So one of the biggest beautiful things about joy is that if we want more joy, we can learn how to surrender. This gorgeous artwork of my dear friend Sundara Fawn, and she has painted this beautiful picture of surrender. And what we know about surrender, that if we surrender to something larger than us, and I like to call it, as they do in the 12-step program, good orderly direction. Some people call that God. But if we can experience it, surrender into something larger than ourselves that is guiding us, we can experience more joy. Because if we're alone in this thing, we are going to feel super duper stressed out. So knowing that we have a connection to something larger than us that has our best interest at heart, that really produces less stress and more joy. I remember that Albert Einstein that said, is it a friendly universe or not? Those people that feel that way have more joy. They have the support and love and the joy. So we want to make peace with this process of surrender. And surrender doesn't always mean giving up. Surrender also means paying attention. When you look up the definition of surrender, it actually says pay attention and be alert. So we want to keep taking action steps, but we also want to have an internal sense of beingness and surrender, which helps hold that net of joy and love to create more joy. So this wonderful, great spiritual teacher, Yogananda, said, please process, because we cannot live in bliss all the time. If we did, we would be as a spoiled child. So step 3, let's go into step 3, and that is celebrating the joy magnet that you truly are, where our mind, body, spirit are on the same team mostly. Our heart is leading the show, and we have joy as a state of being, this integration. And so we're whole, we're complete, we feel like we are enough. You are connected, you are supported and loved, you are joy itself. And so I just got back from New York City, and I realized that I experienced New York in a different way because I felt like I was more online with this quality and fullness of the joy magnet, the essence of who I am. I got to experience the smells and the sounds, and any of you who've walked down the street of New York City knows there's tons of stimulation coming in. And as I felt supported and loved and connected, knowing I would be safe and okay there, I was able to really take in and celebrate the experiences around me from the essence of the joy that I truly was. And that is something that you can do as well. So that's step 3, is learning to receive the good, learning to really savor and take that in. So how do we do that? We keep the door to our heart open. We are wide open, and we really resist the urge to close down because life is too short to close down. So we really want to regulate our heart rate and our physiology so we can stay open to the joyful experiences in our life. So here is a net of joy and love that's everlasting, and that is what I want to offer you with this 3-step process. So how are you able to hold yourself in this net of joy and love with non-judgment? And we want to let go of anything that gets caught in this net so you can have pure and lasting joy that radiates through your heart and that you can access permanently when you want to. So this is the way I want you to feel. Isn't she precious? This beautiful gal, that joy is an inside job, and it's a well there that we can access anytime. But we also need the right environment within ourselves and around us to really get those neural networks connected together, to feel this yummy and feel that joy that's truly our essence, so we can celebrate it. So let me tell you a little bit more about how I would love to help you with that. And let's do a little bit of Q&A to see if there are any questions at all for you guys that you might have for experiencing more joy in our lives. And we're going to have a little bit of a delay, so we will actually hang out and move into a little bit of music for 2 or 3 minutes as people are putting their questions in, and then I'll be answering questions as we are moving into more joy. So let's just hang out a couple minutes, and we will be getting these questions in as we are enjoying this wonderful song. Okay, thank you, Pharrell Williams, for that great song. So as we're getting the questions coming in, it's still a little bit of a delay. So I want to move into telling you about a way I can actually help you deepen these 3 steps in your life. I want to share with you what I have coming up next. And it is a phenomenal transformational program called the 3 Steps to Raising Your Joy IQ. So if you want to go deeper with me and moving into working these 3 steps in a more personal way, I am offering this 4-week webinar coming up that I would love for you to be involved in if this feels right to you. Because these 3 steps, as I've seen over the last 20 years with my clients, have actually transformed their lives and transformed the lives of so many people that I know. And so I'd really love to share this with you. So let me tell you a little bit about each week what we're going to be doing in this process. The session 1, we're going to be going deeper into the 3 steps for more joy. And I'm going to give you a process to help clear out your joy busters, whatever those were. And those joy busters we are going to clear out of your system so you have more capacity. And then we're going to look at awakening your inner counselor, which is that wise part of you that we worked on accessing tonight so that you can have that beyond the 5 sensory guidance as to what feels right to you, what brings more joy for you, and what helps guide you. And then we're going to look at accessing your inner pipeline to joy. And I'm going to have a superb special guest as well teaching you. Her name is Julie Weaver, and she's a dear counselor friend of mine who is going to be teaching you the emotional freedom technique. And she's actually offering you a free session with her to teach you how to move through these joy busters. So if you're ready to blast through those joy busters in your life, we can definitely do that on session 1. And I see some questions coming in, but let me get through a couple more things, and then we're going to go into the questions. Session 2, we're going to identify your joy-building patterns, and we're going to move from the joy stealers to the joy builders, and I have a specific process on exactly how to do that. We're also going to set your intentions, because remember, what we focus on becomes larger in our lives, so for creating that joy-filled life that you want. And then I'm going to be giving you a formula for creating and manifesting more joy in your life if that's what you're wanting. And then helping you step off the drama triangle. And what does that mean? The ways that we go victimized, the way that we persecute ourselves, all those ways that we interfere with the capacity for joy in our lives. And session 2 and 3, I also have incredible guests coming. Session 2 and 3, I have Erin Cox. She's going to be coming sharing her happiness habits, and she's going to be giving you one of her happiness log that she actually did. She's a fantastic author through Hay House Publishing, and she's a dear friend, and she will be sharing with you a joy builder as well and giving you a fantastic free gift. And then Marcy Shimoff, the New York Times best-selling author of Chicken Soup for the Women's Soul and Happy for No Reason and Love for No Reason, she will also be on session 2 or 3 sharing with you a joy builder. So they'll be on one of those sessions, each of those wonderful, phenomenal guests. And so they're going to be giving you some free gifts that are worth so much to help build your joy. So session 3, I'm going to be teaching you a joy-building self-love meditation, and this actually increases dopamine in your brain. I actually studied this, and it helps those feel-good chemicals, so you can actually do this meditation repetitively, and you will find you will feel more. I actually gave this to a couple clients, and they didn't even come back. It worked so well. So this is something I've done a lot of research on, and I look forward to sharing this with you to help decrease any anxiety and depression that you're experiencing. And I also am going to teach you how to safeguard your joy and how to use your joy builders in your life more effectively. And then session 4, we're going to end with a bang. We're going to talk about celebrating the beautiful you that you are, receiving this wonderful celebration of yourself. I had a client coming the other day, and she said, I just want to learn to celebrate myself. I have never truly listened to the deepest things that bring me joy. And so we're going to learn how to do that. And the quote that life is messy, but it's really perfect. We're going to really develop a relationship with that and receiving the good as the fertilizer for joy so you can have those brain patterns that are permanent and lasting. And we're also going to have a superior special guest as well named Sundara Fawn. She's a dear friend and mystic and artist, and she's going to be sharing with you some of her incredible art journeys that take you into celebrating yourself. And you'll get to see her gorgeous art as well that we saw earlier in the webinar. So we're getting some questions as well, and so I'm going to finish up on this beautiful offer that I have. So as I did research for the offer, what I found is this offer was actually worth $497 as I looked and did all the research, but I really want to give it to you today on this call for $297 because I feel like it would be worth every penny of that and more. With all this 3-step process, learning to use that over and over as a way to access more joy in your life, as well as the knock out of the park special guests that we're going to be having in the 4-part course. And so if you would like to sign up for this, you can go to raisingyourjoyiq.com course here on the screen. And I also have a few more slots left at the $97 price. So the first people that do sign up for it will get it for $97 until we run out of those slots. And so I would love for you to join this joy train if that feels right for you. So please sign up here. So as I look at the Q&A, we do have some questions, and one of them is how meditation practice can help, because clearly meditation is a huge word, and it comes in lots of different forms. So meditation can be active, meditation can also be passive, but meditation does rewire the brain. And so a lot of recommendations for meditation are 20 minutes a day, twice a day. I know that I experienced my healing in 20 minutes once a day meditating. If that feels like way too much and those wild horses are going crazy in your brain, start out with 10 minutes and work your way up to 20 minutes. And there's lots of different kinds of meditation that you can use. Vipassana meditation is one of them. You can use active meditations where you're guided through guided imagery. You can use transcendental meditation. So many different types and so much research on all of those and building joy in the brain. If you have more questions about those, I'd be happy for you to email me and I can answer those questions for you. So I'm going to move into leaving you with this quote. And if you would like to sign up for the course, again, the first people that do it get it for $97. And if you would like to do that, please do that. And would love to have you on the course. So I'd love to end with an inspiring quote for you today. And thank you so much for your time and being with me. And it was such a joy to be here with you today. So when you do things from your soul, you feel a river moving in you, a joy. What you seek is seeking you. Rumi. So if you'd like to access more joy, take that step and that courage forward and know that what you seek is seeking you. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm so grateful to be with you, and have a wonderful, joy-filled evening, and take great care. Bye-bye.